Howdy folks, it's Professor Wilfong. I hope you're all staying warm and enjoying your snow day. I'll try to keep this as brief as I possibly can, but it's time for us to start talking about upcoming assignments. I know we're all still reeling from the review essay, but it's an essay writing class, so there are more essays to come. So this essay is going to be a report. So let's talk about what you're going to do for this one. It's very different than the last one. With the last essay, you were required to give your opinion on something, a movie, a book, a TV show, a restaurant, etc. For this assignment, you are going to be doing pretty much the opposite of that. You are going to write a fact-based, objective report on a topic that you have derived from the Research Discussion Board assignments, and I will explain those in the next video. So let's talk about what it means to be objective, okay, because those are the two important words here. Basically, and we're going to talk more about this in class when we finally get to see each other again. Basically, to be an objective report, it needs to be based entirely on information that has come from sources on research. So you need to base your report entirely on researched secondary sourced information, and we're going to talk more in class about what secondary sourced information is. You may not include your own opinions, your own personal beliefs, or talk about your own personal experience with the topic that you choose. Right? You are forbidden from bringing those things in, and they're not relevant to the purpose of this assignment. So again, pretty much exactly the opposite of the last essay. Your goal with this, your purpose here is different. With this type of essay, your goal is purely to inform, just to provide information to your audience about the topic that we didn't already know, ideally, and that you didn't know before you started researching. That's really the idea behind it. So you're not trying to persuade us of anything. If you pick a topic that is controversial in nature, which is fine, there are a lot of interesting controversial topics out there. Some are inherently not controversial. But if you do pick a controversial topic, you may not take a position on it. Right? You need to stay totally neutral, 100% neutral. Like, I should not be able to tell how you feel about the topic from reading the essay. So think about yourself as being a lot like an encyclopedia. An encyclopedia has to stay neutral on all topics. And news sources ideally are supposed to do that as well, but that's a whole different conversation. So the essay, again, is going to be entirely research-based. You need to use at least 3 outside sources for this, and at least 2 of them must come from the Greenville Tech Library databases, and we're going to spend class time talking about how to use those. They are incredibly valuable, rich resources for mining information. They are not as intuitive as, say, Google, but anyone can use Google, right? So the idea is that you guys become better researchers than the average person. So just to make sure that folks are getting adequate use of the databases and practice with them, that's why you need at least 2 in there. But you can have more than 3 sources. I wouldn't go too far over, I wouldn't go over 5 necessarily. It's better to have 3 very helpful, good quality sources than 5 sources that you just use a little bit from each. Plus, more sources means more citation, but we'll get to that. In terms of the type of sources that you use, you can really use any type that you want. I'm not picky about that, as long as it's credible and scholarly, and we'll talk more about that. You may not put pictures in your report essay because it's not a 7th grade report on dinosaurs. It's just an essay. But you can use any type of source that you want. You can use articles from newspapers, you can use magazine articles, scholarly journal articles, and we'll talk more about those in the upcoming classes. Stuff from encyclopedias, podcasts, videos, published interviews, maps, timelines, charts, graphs. I mean, the sky's the limit. You can use a mixture. So if you're not really keen on reading and you are able to find the information that you need on your topic from just watching like documentary videos, and I'm going to show you guys some good sweet spots for finding those, among other things, that's fine. I'm totally okay with that. If that's what works best for you, then go for it. So again, though, when selecting your sources, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about this too. It is essential that you evaluate them very carefully. You will not suffer for a lack of information. You will probably find a lot more information on your topic than you really need, some of which will be helpful and some of which won't. But one thing that you'll have to be really careful about is sniffing out any bias that you find, and we'll talk more about what bias is as well. So, for instance, if your topic is a controversial one, then it's essential that you provide multiple sides to the issue. So you wouldn't want to have 3 sources that all argue the same position on the controversial topic, like, I don't know, global warming or medicinal marijuana, right? You wouldn't want to have 3 sources that all are saying that medicinal marijuana is effective and safe and should be legalized, because then it would sound like you're also arguing that position when you're supposed to say neutral. So you need a mix to balance it out. So you can use sources that are biased, but you need to balance them out with sources that argue the opposite so that you're not, because you are the medium here. Citation. We are going to spend a lot of time going over MLA citation format, including in-text citation and the works cited page, and how to format those. So what you should not use for your citation is there is a program in Microsoft Word. I'll show you where it is. It's up here at References. It's a citation program. You should not use that because it is not accurate. It's not that I want you to do things the old-fashioned way or anything. It's wrong. It does not do the citation correctly. And I can always tell when a person has tried to sneak it by me because they're always wrong in the same way. So we're not going to use footnotes or endnotes in this assignment. Those are not MLA format. So if you did that in high school, we're not doing that here. Direct quotes. We're going to talk about direct quoting from sources, how to do it, why you would want to do it, when it would be appropriate to do it. And you have to directly quote your sources, or at least one source, in the essay, if for no other reason than to show me that you can. But no more than 10% of the essay's content may be directly quoted from your sources. Not because this would be plagiarism, which some people say, like, oh, well, yeah, that would be plagiarism. No, not necessarily. And we are going to talk about what constitutes plagiarism in class so that we're 100% clear on that. So you know where all the mines in the minefield are on that. But in terms of like direct quotes, if more than 10% of the essay has been directly quoted, even if you've done it correctly, you've got your quotation marks and you have your citation, everything, if like 30-40% of the essay has been... Sorry about that. My cats decided it would be the perfect time to start battling each other on the coffee table, so I had to take a break there for a second. Hope you're still with me. All right, let's get back to it. So again, you want to be careful not to overquote from your sources, because then you're really relying on your sources too heavily to do all the talking for you, and if your audience wanted to read that much directly taken from your sources, we just go to the sources ourselves, which defeats the purpose. So the rest of the essay needs to be entirely paraphrased and summarized, meaning in your own words. And we'll talk more about what that means. We'll definitely get some practice with doing that, because that's a huge part of avoiding plagiarism, but also kind of the entire idea behind the report in the first place, is that you need to be able to explain information in your own words, because there's really no better test of understanding of a topic than to be able to genuinely explain something in a simple, summative way in your own words. So, is it easy? No, but it's an important skill to have. So again, I know everybody's nervous about plagiarism, and rightly so, because any amount of plagiarism I'm required to give an automatic 0 for the assignment, and really that means any amount, whether it's intentional or unintentional. At the end of the day, it's still plagiarism. So we're going to work really hard to make sure that that doesn't happen. We're going to have a lot of checkpoints along the way with this assignment, the research discussion boards being some of them. So if you're paying any attention in class and you're doing the extra assignments, the supplementary assignments, then you should be okay. We will do the best we can to make sure that that doesn't happen to you. Now, you're always going to get a few people who think they can sneak it by, but I'll just say right now, you probably can't. So let's just not even go there. All right, let's look at the length and other specifics. So it is a little bit longer. It needs to be at least 600 words, so a little bit longer than the last essay, but try not to go over 950 because that's getting pretty long. And reports should really be succinct. If we wanted as much depth and detail as was provided by your sources, again, we would just go to those sources ourselves, and that defeats the purpose. So that is not including the MLA formatted outline that you're going to turn in with the essay, just like last time, or your works cited page. So just bear that in mind. Make sure to have a specific title. Don't just call it report. It should be specific to the topic that you are reporting on. Because we're staying objective, because we're staying neutral throughout the essay, that requires that you use third person point of view only, meaning you may not refer to yourself in the first person at all, because what you think and feel and believe and what your opinions are not relevant to this assignment. So, and second person would be me, and I don't know why you'd be talking about me because I'm not the topic of your essay, right? Again, you need to submit a copy of your outline with your essay. Format the paper according to MLA guidelines using the example in your book. You're going to submit it through Blackboard, and there's a slightly different grade form. This one has a category for source use and citation, and we'll go over that in class. So a few tips from me to you to have an effective report essay. Biggest tip I can give you, you're going to start fairly broad with these research discussion board assignments, and that's okay. But you want to drill it, you're probably going to have to drill it down significantly. You'll probably find over the course of your research that the topic that you have is too broad, you bit off more than you could chew, and it's, you need to take a particular approach, a particular avenue when it comes to the topic, because you can't talk about all of it, not with as much depth as you need to. So we're going for quality of information rather than quantity of information. So it's better to say a lot about a little than a little about a lot. That's always true. And if you narrow down your topic, that will make your job researching the topic and writing about the topic significantly easier. So do yourself a favor. So that's a big part of the research process. The topic that you end up with by the end may not be exactly the same as what you started with, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you should give up and start over. It's supposed to be an evolutionary process, I guess. Or maybe you'll end up with the same thing as you had at the beginning, who knows. Sources. You are only as credible as your sources, and we're going to talk about credibility of source material and why that's important. Again, you're not going to suffer for a lack of information, but not all of that information is necessarily going to be trustworthy source information. When in doubt, cite. Let's talk about that. It is worth being paranoid over. Do not assume anything is common knowledge and does not need to be documented. The point of the assignment is to show what you've learned over the course of the project, and more importantly, where you learned it. Okay? So that I can literally trace it back to the source where you said it would be. That's what source documentation is. When selecting sources, again, you'll probably have more than you need, and that's okay. So just bear in mind that you are going to have to become very intimately acquainted with these sources so that you can incorporate them effectively. Okay? So if you can't explain it simply, as Einstein said, you don't understand it well enough, which means that if you encounter sources that are over your head, in terms of the language, the jargon that they're using, just the complexity of the information, like it's written by doctors for other doctors, it's probably not a good source for you. If you can't understand it, then it's not a good source. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're dumb because you don't understand it. It just means you're not a doctor. You didn't go to medical school for 10 years. So that's okay. There are plenty of other sources out there that will make more sense to you. So it's important not to leave the research to the last second so that you can be selective about the sources that you pick. When coming up with your topic, just be honest with yourself. There are some topics that it's impossible to be neutral about because they're too close to us personally. So can you be objective about the topic, or do you have any personal bias that may get in the way of being neutral? At the end of the day, though, it's all about us, your audience, of course. What would we want to know about your topic? Because that's your job here, to teach us about your topic, to make us better informed so that we can make better decisions and we know more about the world we live in. So how can you make the content and the delivery easy to follow but also interesting? And I'm interested in what you're interested in. So, when coming up with a topic, it's important to pick something that you are genuinely curious about, that you really want to know more about, and so that you can pass that enthusiasm and passion for the topic on to us. Okay? All right, well, that's it. I will see you again for the next video.